Perfect. Ayana, Dr. Johnson, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Been busy, and I'm enjoying the show. I will say that. Thank you so much for all that doing, and are continuing to do.
Thanks.
Hey, I got a funny. Before we get started, fun fact. I don't know if I ever told you this, but growing up, I wanted to be a marine biologist.
Be an artist, so let's.
Yeah. So just wanted to get that out there. I don't know if I had. I was telling a good friend of mine the story the other day when we were together. My partner Sekou and we were talking about it. It's like, man, I've known you for 20 years. I never knew that. But anyway, now everybody knows. How are you?
I gotta change my glasses for you.
Go for it.
For you, get the black and gold.
Let's do that. I like that. Let's do it.
Nice gets to change his hat between sets. I'll just like the thing that they're like face jewelry, right?
I love it. You'll be here for a while. Thank you for this. I think Piper said something very important for you to get the platform and then bring others on. That's
what are you gonna do? Just talk to myself?
Yeah, it's real touchy right now. Like we're in a space where white people are trying to figure out what to say. But I think pass the mic is a gentle way of allowing people to say the important things in the spaces that need to be said. So also thanks, Julia, for passing and allowing you to do this.
Hi, Brian from TED. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so when Julia invited me, sort of offered me the keys to her social media, I thought, well, like, what would I do? What would I do with that? And so my first question was like, did she want to be in conversation with me? So we did this IG Live yesterday because, like you were saying, I feel like this is a moment where we need to talk about stuff together. Monologuing is not as interesting as her kind of being in conversation with me, us being able to, talk about our shared experiences and perspectives. So yeah, let the dialogue continue.
Yeah, and absolutely, let it continue. Yeah.
Before we get started, I want to show people your art.
Let's do it. It's in your home. Let's do it.
Let's see. Let me turn it around. This is a piece, Community. I commissioned this from Reggie. It was my word of the year, that this is my goal, is to build community around solutions, around climate solutions in particular. And so that was like my gift to myself. And I think it's so great to have art in your home that's like your friends have made. And Reggie, I don't know if you've seen this other one I do have framed.
Yeah. You have all the good stuff.
I got good taste.
Yeah, you have all the good stuff.
I feel like this is a good reminder. I also bought one of these for my goddaughter as a present, so that she'll know when she sees it that she's got this, I've got her. So, whoops. Okay. You guys are like seeing all my books.
Yeah, that's great, man.
So, Reggie, this is a Juneteenth takeover.
Sure.
Is that something that's a part of your life? What does Juneteenth mean to you?
Growing up, my life, is that an echo on my end, or maybe? I think growing up, it was a part of my life a lot, like tremendously. I think we celebrated in school, and not that I don't celebrate being Black as an adult, but there was like a whole thing around Juneteenth as a child. And I vividly remember, people give DCPS a lot of slack, man, but I tell you, if you put yourself in a position to align yourself with all the great teachers, there were people here that really could foster you and help you out. And so I learned a lot. And then another important thing is what a lot of people have to remember is that growing up in DC in the mid to late 80s, early 90s, that it was Chocolate City. And so I grew up around a 100% Black ecosystem. That's what charted my path for creativity and entrepreneurship. Like, everybody I knew in my neighborhood was a Black-owned business owner. And so I would get up in the morning. Funny enough, our family house was positioned in the middle of like 3 schools. So I never had to walk maybe like 5 minutes to school. Like, my elementary school was there, middle school was there, and Roosevelt Senior High School was behind it. So I lived in Petworth growing up in DC. And at that time there was, Black banks, there was a Black funeral home, there was a Black barbershop, there was Black bodegas and convenience stores. And so that really took me on this path that I'm still on today. It was that seed that was planted then that really birthed everything that I wanted it to become. And I was like, there was just no way that I could see myself going into corporate America with that fabric, like waking up to it every day. When I had my backpack going to school, you heard the windows and the gates going up of, Mr. Claude opening the door and the Marshall's family going to. So yeah, it's important. It's sincerely important to me.
Sort of have had a bunch of different entrepreneurial initiatives over the last few years, kind of maybe inspired by just the world in which you grew up, and maybe have you been trying to like create some of that? And tell us about what you got going on besides art that I love.
Right now, I'm reflecting in times. I think my work has, for a very long time, had a universal language. I speak to transparency. I speak to mental health. I speak to addiction. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Everyone knows that. So I always put that in my message and in my language. And in particularly, I think I try my best to connect with Black men, because I know we struggle with this whole like warrior champion thing, and we don't want to be vulnerable and express ourselves. And so my work is this kind of like intersection of trying to build that bridge to make people, and then on the underline of that, make men feel comfortable with expressing themselves. But particularly right now, with the world on fire and me being a target market of the demographic for daily violence in this country, I'm kind of putting that side of the work not on hold, but I want to make sure that the work that I'm making right now is reflecting the times. And so what I've been doing now, what I have been doing now is trying to figure out how to get involved. Because I think what's happening, a lot of people are pressing the panic button, and they're trying to figure out a way to contribute. And what's going to happen, it's going to feel really messy. It's going to look really unintentional and very thoughtless. And so I've been really in deep thought, trying to think about the best way to contribute. And so we talk about the protests, and we talk about being involved. I think there's so many different ways to protest. You can protest through creativity. You can protest through expressing the importance of economic empowerment. You can protest through a multitude of things. And so it's just, for me, I'm trying to figure out where does my language and work fit best. And if that's helping organizations and initiatives right now, if that's trying to amplify the space of mental health for Black people right now, I think that's what I'm particularly inspired in. My manager, Allison, and I, we're working on a lot of potential opportunities for my work being involved with mental health organizations, because I think out of everybody right now, like, we're going to need some encouragement. And so although I love the work that I do and what I'm doing and everything that I've done over the years, I can't continue to sell that uplifting message in a time where everybody that looks like me is going through pain. And so I want to make sure that I'm very careful about just trying to go on through life like, oh, well, to your point, you got this. A lot of the prints that I make can reflect this time, but the uplifting energy of them doesn't reflect the time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, your recent pieces on I'm gonna forget the title of the series, on corporate
mass manipulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
these pieces on Julia's Twitter account. If you want to find that, just you could go to Reggie's. We have to scroll pretty far down. I'm sure it's in your Instagram.
Yep.
These like really provocative pieces that put the logo of banks or corporations and like incorporate them into in with your lettering and your art to sort of like twist and reframe the message in a way that I think is crafted perfectly for this moment.
Thank you. Yeah, that was actually that was like the first piece of work I've been able to make for in a very long time, and I think I was trying to figure out exactly what to say, and so it all came. I mean, I was doing quite a few like long walks and runs, and coming from the world of marketing, my degree is in marketing, and I love branding, and so I love the stories and the narratives of corporations. But what I find, and oftentimes it kind of breaks my heart, is that America has this like romantic love affair with corporations. Like we always want to have sympathy for them, and we always want to bail them out, and we always want to come to their aid and abetment. And it's like, oh, well, all right, like the Target's looting. Like, I mean, people are looting the Target or burning down the Wendy's, but it's like, have you considered the why? Have you thought about the why and why people are doing these things to these corporations when in fact there are the corporations that are looting the most? The SBA loans were distributed and you know what I mean? Like they looted corporate funding from public people, but we'll get on the platforms no matter where we are and talk about how they are the we need to save them or something. And so that work was
it's reminding us that corporations are not people.
Again?
So everyone loves your art, Reggie.
Thank you, everybody. Hey, what's up, Amir?
The homies are here.
Yeah, everybody's here. I think I saw Nina here. Everybody's here. Appreciate you all.
Oh.
Everybody's here. Everybody's here. Okay, cool.
So, yeah, tell us what's been sort of, it feels like this is an inflection point in American history. All of these things are coming together at once. What has this, what have you noticed in this last month that sort of surprised you or really stuck with you as far as the type of change that we're in the middle of?
I mean, to be perfectly transparent, for one, it didn't dawn on me how many people are unaware of racial issues in this country. Mm-hmm. Like, honestly, and that might sound a little or silly, but if you live in, and my wife and I, we talk about this all the time, if you live in one of the 5 to 6 major cities in America, you don't have to deal with it because, DC, LA, Chicago, New York, maybe Houston, if you live in these like metropolis, you don't have to deal with the diversity issue because every day you're surrounded by this kind of multicultural experience. But anywhere else in the country, it's like Walmart America, right? And so I just, living here in the DC area, I won't say it didn't dawn on me, but it shocked me how regressive America really is. And seeing everything come out in the public now and just how much hate is being spewed into the country, that was very shocking, Ayana. I mean, of course we thought we had some progress made with President Barack Obama in office, and we thought that, the country was moving in this very kind of kumbaya energy. But I think what's happening now is that everybody, whether you're a person, a corporation, an organization, you're moving into a very intentional state. And I think everybody now can finally realize that we have to move with intention. We have to move with purpose. We have to help each other. We have to create platforms for other people to execute their voice and use their talents to say what they need to say and say what they want to say. And so I think what you're going to see is this reemergence of intentionality. And I hope that through all of this, we don't go back to where we were, early March before the world kind of exploded.
And how can we support your work? How can we help?
I would love to I would love to work with, if anybody has any connections for mental health organizations, and if you know any organizations that are looking to do like creative work and figure out how to way to make collaborations with artists and designers. I think that's where my heart is right now. My heart's always been there. But it's funny because, you know, as an artist, sometimes you have to like go off and get this high profile, resume, if you will, before you can come back down and speak to the things that really matter. And a lot of artists don't like to roll the dice that way because it's tricky. It's like, oh well, you can't get the Nike collaboration if you talk on what you really care about too early, or you know, Vans won't work with you if you talk about what you really care about too soon in your careers. If you're not like, you know, one of the OGs of the art world, they don't consider you. And so I just want to, I want to, right now for me, it's how can I build as many collaborations as possible with organizations. I text you all the time, joking with you, like, hey, like, whenever I can sneak up in some of your work, let me do it. But I mean, just that for me, if anyone has any organizations in mind after looking at my work that you think would be a good fit, please let me know. Say that again.
Hop in the DMs.
Yeah, please hop in the DMs if you have any organizations around the U.S., around the world actually, that are looking for mental health work. And then I want to try to start highlighting other young artists and designers, Black young artists and designers. So when you see me post and talk about them, please support their work as well.
Definitely follow I Am Reggie Black.
Yep.
Instagram. His feed is beautiful because be really good to see.
Good to see. Don't ask me the question you asked Piper at the end.
Okay.
No, you can ask me. It's a heavy one. That's why I was like, oh man, like, phew.
What would you think if racism didn't exist?
Man, I'll be in San Francisco as like a VC dude for, like, business is my heart. I'm like, my son jokes all the time. He's like, you're like a businessman turned artist. And like, I would be in San Francisco with the venture capitalist firm, investing and figuring out an intersection to merge art and design, but making sure that the artists understand the importance of making their art a commercial structure that's sustainable. That's my
rolling the billions of dollars. That sounds great.
We gotta extinguish this notion that art is supposed to be this kind of crafty thing, and we have to do a better job of taking care of our artists and supporting them in a financial sense so they can continue to do their art. So that's what I'll be doing.
Getting a lot of comments here that you should do it. The people make it happen.
Yeah, it's a huge one of mine. Maybe through this I'll make that turn somehow. We'll see.
Well, if you know of any mental health organizations, people who are watching, send I Am Reggie Black a DM.
Please.
Love to connect him.
Thing too, if we can make that happen.
If you are a VC or just want to give Reggie a whole pile of money so that he can support the next wave of entrepreneurship and design, and Blackness and beauty, then I'm sure he would welcome those.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ayana, thank you so much for doing this, man. You could have came on here and talked for 3 hours by yourself, but you brought other people along, and I think that's the power of this time, and that's why I've loved you since we used to get coffee at TED. So
I would love to get coffee with you again
soon.
Like fancy coffee. It's like right now. I just want to have a really fancy coffee and like people watch in a cafe.
Yeah. That's the place I miss the most. People are like, what do you miss the most? I'm like, going to coffee shops.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, Reggie.
Be good.